Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Timey-Wimey Tuesday with the next exciting episode of the Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation. So last time we bid a sad but bittersweet farewell to Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor with Season 18. This time around we're going to welcome the new Doctor, Doctor number 5, Peter Davison. Yes, with Season 19 of the classic series. Wow, 19 seasons so far. Crazy, crazy stuff. Alrighty, so it was a long time before we got to see these over here in the good old America of the North. But boy, when we finally did, we were treated to quite a mix of stories. Just some really good stuff and some not so good stuff, but we'll talk about that a little bit as we get to them. So let's get right to it, shall we? Season 19 of the classic series of Doctor Who, the debut season of Doctor number 5, Peter Davison, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Okay, so starting off, we have story number 117, Castrovalva, which you can find in this box set, the New Beginnings box set, which we took a brief look at last time. Just to keep this nice and simple, I will take the story in question out. You can buy all 3 stories in that set individually as well, so if you prefer to keep your Doctors segregated, you can. So this is Castrovalva, which is basically a culmination of a trilogy of stories which began with the Keeper of Traken, continued through Legopolis, and concludes here with Castrovalva, the debut story of the 5th Doctor. So the 5th Doctor is having some trouble after his regeneration. Let's give you a look at the back here as well. Yeah, he's having some trouble with his regeneration. It's a little bit rough. That's often the way it goes. I mean, you got to figure regeneration is a pretty traumatic experience for a Time Lord. I mean, just imagine every single cell in your body reconfigures itself. I mean, that's got to wear you down, man. So anyway, the Doctor's having some trouble, and he hears about this planet called Castrovalva, which sounds like a good place to go to recover. It turns out, however, it's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. So while he's recovering, he's trying to figure out what's really going on, and his companions are helping him. It's a good thing he's got a full roster of companions. He got Tegan, Nyssa, and Adric to help out, and yeah, so it's pretty cool stuff. So once again, we get into the whole block transfer computation thing, which so far beyond my knowledge of math. I don't even know if it's a genuine thing. I think it is, but it's getting into some pretty heady sci-fi territory. But really cool. If you're a fan of M.C. Escher, you'll probably enjoy this story because it's clearly heavily inspired by M.C. Escher in a lot of ways. Just really, really cool stuff, and a pretty, a pretty good introduction to the 5th Doctor. Now, of course, there's one particular heartbreaking scene where we see him unraveling the scarf. Yeah. Let's have a moment of silence for the scarf. Okay, that's good. Anyway, carrying on, we have story number 118, For to Doomsday. Yes, which many fans consider to be not that good. It's funny, I mentioned that special, Once Upon a Time Lord. Once Upon a Time Lord actually showed some clips of this, and that was the first thing I ever saw of Doctor number 5 in action. And funny enough, that's kind of appropriate, because For to Doomsday, while being the 2nd story of the season, was actually the first one that they filmed. They decided that like Peter Davison spent quite a lot of time working with John Nathan Turner and whatnot to figure out how he was going to do his portrayal of the Doctor. I mean, obviously they wanted something that was different from Tom Baker. They want to have, variety. I mean, but still being unmistakably the Doctor. And it's quite, it's funny because Peter Davison is primarily known as a comedic actor. At least at the time he was. He played Tristan on All Creatures Great and Small prior to Doctor Who, and if you listen to the commentary tracks on these, any commentary track that involves Peter Davison is absolutely hilarious. He is such a funny guy, like just a naturally funny guy. But you wouldn't know that from watching his portrayal as the Doctor, because he plays the Doctor actually quite straight. And very sincere, very serious. And I think, at the time, I didn't like him a lot because I was just so used to Tom Baker's portrayal. And Tom Baker's portrayal is very eccentric, a lot more humor and whatnot. But so Peter Davison's the transition to Peter Davison to me was kind of jarring. Since then, however, I've really come to appreciate his portrayal, and I actually really like his Doctor a lot. And actually, even at the time, I did warm up to him pretty quickly. But initially, it was a rough transition, especially being the first regeneration I'd ever experienced. I mean, this was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. So I can definitely empathize with all the new Who fans who may have come in at, Christopher Eccleston or David Tennant or Matt Smith, and they're having difficulty coping with their first regeneration. I completely understand. I absolutely understand, and I know exactly where you're coming from. If it's any consolation, every single Doctor Who fan ever has gone through the exact same thing and can completely empathize. And if they don't empathize, then they're just being jerks. So ignore those people. So it's just part of the Doctor Who fandom. It's change is the only constant. We'll say that. All right. So the interesting thing is, so Florida Doomsday was actually the first one that he filmed. He wanted to kind of just do a random adventure before doing the regeneration story, so that he'd be settled into the role and be able to better do the regeneration story, I guess, without having as much pressure on, as it were. But and I think it works really well. But you can definitely see, like his performance is a lot more assured and solid, and lots of nuances and whatnot in Castrovalva than it is in Florida Doomsday. Interesting extra on here, they actually have the very first studio session with Peter Davison, and they have some footage from that, like about 20 minutes or so of footage from his very first day on set as the Doctor. How cool is that? Nice little piece of history there, especially if you're a Peter Davison fan. So next up, we have Kinda, story number 119. Yes, this one is actually quite a good one. And this is a great story about dreams, and there's this sort of creature that lives in dreams and whatnot. It's kind of this snake-like creature. Tegan becomes possessed in this, so there's a story of possession in here. And it's pretty cool. You get to see Janet Fielding just cut loose as evil Tegan, and that's a lot of fun. But this one's really good. This is where the Fifth Doctor, I think, really starts to gel, and we start to get some really, really good stories. So we got that, and then just gotta move this down a little bit because we got a few more stories here than we usually do. Next up, this one is a personal favorite of mine. I know fans, again, are kind of divided on it, but I always liked this one a lot. One of the reasons being I have a book all about the making of this specific story. We've got The Visitation. Now, this is the special edition version. Haven't had any special editions for a while, have we? So this is a 2-disc set. Lots of extras on here. But this one takes place in 1666, in the middle of the Great Plague, and there's some strange alien goings on going on that the Doctor must investigate. This is the one and only appearance of the pteroleptils, who was a race of lizard-like aliens who I thought were pretty cool, actually, and but we've never really seen them since. Maybe we've probably seen them in like novels or audio adventures since, but the only TV appearance anyway. But yeah, I always really liked this one a lot, actually, and I know fans are, as I say, kind of divided on it. I don't know why. I think it's a pretty decent story. It's pretty solid, and has some cool monsters in it. It's got the pteroleptils. It's also got a really cool robot in it and stuff like that. And I should mention, this being the special edition, let's take a quick peek at the original Region 1 release right here. Yeah. No real reason to get that. As far as I know, all the extras were ported over to this. And this is obviously, you know, a much better edition, better remastering. They actually did remaster the whole thing over again for this, and then more extras as well. The previous release was just a single disc. This is a double disc, so you get way more extras on here, so very cool stuff. Alright, so next up we have, now this is interesting, we haven't had one of these for quite a while, not since the Sontaran experiment back in Tom Baker's first season. We have a two-part story. Yes, 2 parts, just 2 episodes, that's it. We've got Black Orchid, story number 121. Visitation was story number 120, of course. So story number 121, also notable in that this is the first straight-up historical adventure. Like, there's no aliens, no, you know, galactic calamities happening, nothing like that. It's just a straight-up TARDIS going back in time and experiencing stuff back in time on Earth. So straight-up historical adventure. It takes place in 1925 in England. And it's basically just a good old-fashioned murder mystery, and it's actually a lot of fun. I like this one a lot. It's short, it's sweet. You got Nissa or Sarah Sutton getting to play a double role. There's a girl there who's her exact twin, so they have some fun being twins and stuff. So pretty cool. So yeah, I actually like that one a lot, and yeah. So rather than doing the 6-parters, that was one thing John Nathan Turner was kind of pushing towards getting away from, because you may recall a few disambiguations ago I mentioned that some people felt that the 6-parters kind of dragged on, or that they felt like a 4-parter plus a 2-parter, so why was this even done as a 6-parter? John Nathan Turner basically decided to just get away from 6-parters entirely for a while and try a slightly different format. So they were they were doing basically mostly 4-parters with the occasional 2-parter in the middle of the season. The other thing I should mention is this was also another bit of experimentation. They're still doing 26 episodes per season, but they were putting it on twice a week, so 2 days a week instead of once a week. So it was over 2 days a week over the course of 13 weeks instead of once a week for 26. So they would have 2 episodes back to back, like one day after the other, and then they do the same every week. So yes, they were trying some different things to try to revitalize interest in the show, because I guess the ratings have been flagging a little bit, so they were you know, experimenting a little bit with the format, with the scheduling, things like that, to see how people would respond to it. Next up, we have one of the best stories of the season overall, and I think one of the best Fifth Doctor stories period. We have story number 122, Earthshock. Yes, with the long-awaited return of the Cybermen, whom we have not seen since Revenge of the Cybermen, again, back in Tom Baker's first season. There's a lot of callbacks to Tom Baker's first season here. First 2-parter since then, first appearance of the Cybermen since then. Yeah, some pretty cool stuff. But this is a really significant story, not only because it has the return of the Cybermen and the first appearance of the sort of more modern Cybermen that would be prevalent throughout the rest of the 80s, but also features the death of a companion. I won't say who, but the death of a companion, the first time a companion actually died in quite some time as well. Very significant moment. And very shocking when I first saw it, actually. I was really stunned when I first saw it, because I really liked this particular companion. And, you know, I thought it was a very very sad end. In fact, they also did something kind of unique, because at the conclusion of the final episode, after the death of the companion, they ran the credits over silence. So there was actually no closing credit music. They just had basically a moment of silence for that character during the closing credits, and it just ended quietly. So it was very, very somber, very melancholy, a very melancholy send-off for that character. So, plus, it's just a great freaking story. It's got some really good creepy moments, especially during the first couple episodes, and represents a pretty significant moment in history, specifically the death of the dinosaurs. And so we kind of get to find out what happened there. And, of course, the Cybermen were involved, naturally. But just a really, really good story. If you're only going to get, a couple of stories from this season, I would definitely recommend Earthshock be one of them. It's fantastic. In fact, when they recently did, for the 50th anniversary, they had these sets called The Doctors Revisited. They did 3 sets. And each one would have like 3 or 4 of the Doctors represented. And for the one that represented the 5th Doctor, and then they would have one story from that Doctor's era, like one sort of big notable story. So for the 5th Doctor, Earthshock was the one they picked. So pretty cool. Alrighty, then finally, ending off the season, we have probably one of the most despised stories of the entire series. We have Time Flight. I never really got all the hate that this one gets. It's not the greatest story, no, but it does have its moments. Like, come on. It begins, actually, with the surviving companions lamenting about the loss of the one who died, and saying to the Doctor, well, you have a time machine. Why can't you just go back and save that person? And the Doctor's like, you don't understand. Like, that's not the way it works. You can't do that. You can't. That would change history. As much as it pains me, we have to just let that person remain dead. So it's very unfortunate. So Time Flight, notable in that it features the Concorde, which was a pretty big deal. British plane. And essentially the Concorde gets yanked out of time, and there's some nefarious goings-on there. I honestly don't remember much about that story. Maybe that says something right there. I'm pretty sure I've only ever seen this one once, back when it was originally on many, many moons ago. So there you go. So that is season 19. Pretty cool stuff. So we got story number 117, Castrovalva. Story 118, to Doomsday. Story 119, Kinda. Story 120, The Visitation, one of my favorites. Story 121, Black Orchid. Story 122, Earthshock. And finally ending off with story number 123, Time Flight. So there you go. The debut season of the 5th Doctor. So pretty cool stuff. Definitely, overall a pretty solid season. I mean, this one's pretty solid. This one's very solid. This one's very solid. This one's very solid. This one's very solid. So really only a couple of iffy stories in there, to Doomsday and Time Flight. So, yeah, overall a pretty good debut for what would become an awesome Doctor. And I know a lot of people, actually, Peter Davison's their favorite Doctor, and David Tennant, Doctor number 10. Peter Davison was his Doctor. He was a huge fan of the 5th Doctor, and so much so that he married Peter Davison's daughter. So now the 5th Doctor, his Doctor growing up, is now his stepfather. Or not stepfather. Father-in-law. That's the one. Pretty cool. Alrighty. That is it from me to you for now. So I'd just like to take a moment to thank my Patreon sponsors. Thank you very much. Special big thanks to my 2 highest level sponsors, namely Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the fabulous e-mag run by the equally fabulous Michelle O'Toole and Simon Hedger. Big thanks for the support, guys. Really appreciate it. You're helping to make all of this possible, and that is just awesome. So please do consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Every little bit helps, even if it's just $1 a month. So, yeah, thank you very much. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.